One of the main rules in the typical Nuzlocke is that you can only catch the first encounter per route. This is mainly to encourage yourself to use Pokemon that you would usually never use. But after playing through as many Nuzlockes as I have, I found that I actually end up getting a lot of the same mons, which is why I played Nuzlockes with weird rules and limitations now. And that's mainly because of how encounters work. Not all encounters are built equal. Quite often there'll be Pokemon that have a very low chance of spawning, and since you're only targeting the first one you land, while you may get 1 or 2 rare encounters per run, a likely scenario is that you'll almost never land some encounters and will miss out on a bunch of weird team combinations unless you add other rules. So I thought, how well would a run go if I only used rare encounters? I mean, they're rare, so surely they must also be good, right? You already know the rules of a hardcore Nuzlocke, but to summarize, if a Pokemon faints, it's no longer usable, we can't use items in battle, we can't overlevel past the next gym, and we'll be playing on set mode. The only other rule I'll be adding is that I can only use rare encounters. But what actually defines a rare encounter? For a Pokemon to be valid, I decided on 3 criterias. Each time I enter a route, I'll look up the encounter table, and from there, I'll pick the encounter which is the rarest. This Pokemon must have an encounter rate of 5% or lower, and I'll be checking other routes it can spawn on to make sure it never exceeds 5%. Otherwise, it's just a rare encounter on that route, not necessarily a rare encounter. I'll also be looking at the entire line. Just because Cinccino is 5% on one route doesn't mean it's rare, as you can find Minccino more commonly. Truth be told, I'm only just saying these as a formality, as these are the parameters I set for the last time I played this challenge, and will likely be the same for the future ones too. But from Gen 5 onwards, rare Pokemon ironically become quite rare, 1% encounters being basically non-existent, and 5% ones being few and far between, most of which being common on other routes. In fact, originally I was planning on playing this on hard mode, a mode that only exists for black and white, making the game harder. But after seeing the quality of the encounters I get, yeah, we're not doing that. Since I already know what our encounters will be, I know picking Snivy will make the game harder, as this means that Peasant gets Tepig, who will have the type advantage against our real starter, who luckily we can get right on the second route. Not even 5 minutes into my search, we land our starter. Sunken. It's one of those runs, huh? And it's got an adamant nature too, which increases attack in exchange for decreasing special attack. I mean, natures aren't really that important in Nuzlocke, but this is the worst Sunken I could have gotten. Just salt on the wound. I would be disappointed, but heading to the ranch, we can get our second, far stronger encounter. Oh no. So I wasn't really thinking, and it's been years since I played this game. I completely forgot that we had a rival battle this early in the game. So now we're fighting a fire-type Tepig, with our bottom tier grass-type Salad. While Salad does get a very special move that we've had to rely on quite a bit recently, Grass Whistle has a 55% chance to put the opponent to sleep. That is really not good for Nuzlocke, but we have no other choice. And she outspeeds to land her very first one. Sleep can last anywhere between 2 to 5 turns in this game, so I increase our attack twice with Growth on our free turns, and then start using Mega Drains, doing enough. Tepig wakes up immediately, and then uses a Tackle. Maybe this is random move AI. This means that we have a chance. I try putting it back to sleep, failing the first turn, being hit by another Tackle, and then the next Grass Whistle connects. Now I just spam Mega Drains, recovering back our HP, but Tepig wakes up on the first turn using a Tail Whip. Honestly, this could even make the Tackle scary, but as long as it doesn't get a crit, we should be fine. And it uses another Tail Whip. Salad somehow escaping the grasps of death all by herself. Maybe I judged you a little too early, Sunken. Well, as it turns out, there was a grass patch right before the rival fight, so I didn't even need to risk that. And that brings us to our next 5% encounter, Pidove. Well, Pidove is a 5% chance, but it's far more common on other routes, and also, I would have refused to do this challenge if Pidove was my only other encounter. Another one. I have run into 3 of these now before my actual encounter. Why is Pidove even a 5% chance on any route? Well, eventually we do indeed land our real starter, Stake the Riolu. This Pokemon is gonna hard carry half of the entire game, and thank Arceus for that. I was really not looking forward to being walled on the second gym. And he has a negative attacking nature. Now Lucario is a mixed attacker, even slightly better as a special attacker, but special move TMs are far harder to come by in this game, and Lucario doesn't even learn any special moves until level 51. Again, doesn't really matter, but insult to injury, man. Just as a note, this game features seasons, which affect the encounters on some routes. Since I started playing this in spring, I'll only be looking at the spring encounter tables to avoid confusion. Sunken is actually more common during summer. Well, I really hope that you like the Steak Salad combo, as after getting back-to-back encounters, these will be our only Pokemon for a while. The first gym specializes in normal Pokemon, but Steak doesn't get any fighting moves until level 15, which exceeds our level cap. But there's a reason why Steak's gonna hard carry us. Riolu actually evolves through Friendship, which we can just grind out by running back and forth for a couple of hours. I totally did this. And after giving him a level, Steak at level 12 evolves into the Fighting Steel type Lucario before the first gym. And Steel is an amazing type. With Steak hard-walling all of Sharon's Pokemon thanks to Steel resisting normal, we get our first badge while Steak still has over half HP, and beating this gym rewards us with a beautiful move which would be illegal this early on. Return, a move that does more damage based on Friendship, which like I said can be maxed out immediately, so now Steak has a 102 base power normal move right after the first gym. If we were stuck with Salad, the second gym would have been a roadblock for us. But with Steak being immune to poison types, Roxy can't even touch us, and that's already our second badge. I might be one of the 10 people that actually likes PokéStar Studios. I feel people are too hard on it. Maybe it's because you're forced to do the first movie to progress the story, which fair enough. I don't know why they forced that. It is entirely optional after this, and it kind of reminds me of those battle CDs from Pokemon Gale of Darkness. I actually wish they stuck to those sorts of scenarios, showcasing the newer battle mechanics. But after crushing the captain's dreams, he ferries us away to Castelia City, putting us back on the circuit of the original games. Before being allowed to fight the gym, we're forced to chase some Team Plasma grunts through the Castelia sewers like the rats we are. The sewers connect to Relic Passage, a tunnel system where we're already able to grind dust clouds for evolutionary stones, meaning we can get the Sunstone for Salad. It's, better? Onyx is a 5% encounter here, but unlike the original games where Dust Cloud encounters only had Drillbur, Onyx is now a 20% chance as well. Not that we're really losing much, but any encounter goes a long way. Well, I said Steak and Salad were our only Pokemon on the menu for a while, but through the sewers we can actually reach Castelia Gardens where there's yet another rare encounter. What's the infrastructure of the city? This is a location of historical significance for Castelia, and you have to go through a sewer to get here. I mean, I've been to New York, so I understand the sentiment, but still, a little harsh, Game Freak. After about 15 minutes, we land our next encounter in the Doubles Grass. Sashimi the Eevee. Now Eevee's great, he can evolve into an evolution with the type of our choosing to cover our team's weaknesses, and we can pretty much evolve him immediately. But the issue is that the Pokemon that we need learns a specific type move at level 17. Eevee can only be found at level 18 or 19. So we've pretty much already missed the boat on that, and we won't be getting access to a TM or a move tutor for a while. I also want to point out that the evolution that we want is the only one with that issue. The rest learn their type moves at level 21. Why? So while I will be catching him, we must preserve the Sashimi. You can get Eevee as a gift, but that's only after beating the Elite Four, and we're not counting the post-game. Next up is Berg, and he too is walled by Steak. Natures don't matter, but the attack drop is kind of noticeable. Swadloon lowers our speed before going down, which will be annoying later. I came into this battle underleveled since I was feeling confident, but Leavanny's Razor Leaf seemed to be doing as much as our max returns despite being resisted. And he even has a berry keeping him alive a little longer. Thankfully we do enough damage to win the one-on-one, but we're only on 12 HP for Dwebble. Well, it would be a problem if Dwebble didn't only have moves that are 4 times resisted by us. Steel is an amazing type, in this generation still resisting both Dark and Ghost. Okay, a little risky going in underleveled, but I wouldn't really complain if I had to reset. This game introduces a new rival type character called Colress, only interested in bringing out the power of Pokemon whatever the cost. Apparently type coverage is where he draws the line. Steak powers through with Force Palm. Well, I hope you enjoyed those battles while it lasted, as now we have the first difficulty spike of the run. Both Alessa and Clay could be run-enders depending on your encounters up till now. Neither of our Pokemon have strong moves against Electric, and Salad's the only one who resists. Scraggy is a 5% encounter on Route 4, but is more common in the desert resort. Instead, we can get something far more useful than an encounter. The TM for Dig, an 80 base power ground move, one that many Pokemon can learn, including both Steak and Sashimi. Alright, not looking great for us. Maybe there's an encounter past Nimbasa. While in Lost Lawn Forest, Heracross is actually a 5% encounter. Heracross is an amazing Pokemon, especially early on. But wouldn't it be a shame if it happened to be a more common encounter on a route well late into the game? Well, like it or not, we pretty much have everything that we can get before Alessa. So let's see what we can do. Alessa leads with the Molga and I send out Salad. It has the type advantage, but her Molga has no flying moves. We put it to sleep turn 1. I used this as a chance to get a free switch into Stake while she's still asleep, and we outspeed to hit a return doing over half. Emolga stays asleep, so another return brings her down. We're already on the ace Zebstrika, and this is a problematic Pokemon. Aside from none of our Pokemon resisting electric, Zebstrika also has Flame Charge, a fire move, which 2 of our Mons are weak to. Stake actually tanks pretty well and burrows into the ground. Dig does a lot of damage, Zebstrika even eating her berry, bringing her out of heal range. But now we're forced to risk a crit. Stake eats the Flame Charge, and another Dig puts down a Lesser's ace. And finally is Flaffy, but Stake's taken too much damage to stay in. Go on Salad, your turn to shine. Flaffy paralyzes us, but Salad lands the Leech Seed. Never doubted you for a moment. Takedown does a lot of damage, but with Leech Seed and Salad using a Giga Drain. Alright Salad. That did way more than I was expecting. Well, like I was saying, we can recover back most of our HP. And Leech Seed drains the rest of Flaffy's life, earning us the 4th badge. That went a lot smoother than I was expecting. Maybe I really should have just played this on challenge mode. You haven't seen the things I have. Well, with our 4th badge, we're already halfway through the game. The game will get harder from here on out, with Clay being yet another run ender. But we actually have access to another encounter, one I didn't know about until I got here. In Black and White, Carablast and his counterpart Shelmet are available in both games on the same routes with the same encounter rates. Whereas in Black and White 2, each version has one bug being more common, with the other one being a rare 5% encounter. In Black 2, Shelmet is the more common bug, with Parisa the Carablast being our rare bug. We can even evolve him immediately, Carablast being a trade evolution, into a Scavalier, an excellent Pokemon that I've never used before. It has a sky-high attacking stat, with some pretty decent defenses, and even coming with an attack-boosting nature. It's yet another Steel type, great defensively, shared with a Bug type, meaning it's one of the rare types that have a single weakness. Though the one weakness it does have is a double weakness to Fire, which is a type that we're already not too fond of. He even has one of the best abilities in the game, Shell Armor, which prevents him from getting crit, making a few strategies far more consistent. You do need to trade it with the Shelmet to evolve it, but as far as I'm concerned, catching other Pokemon in Nuzlocke is fine as long as you're not using them in battle. HM Butler's being a common example. He doesn't come with the best moves, but in Driftveil, there's the first of 4 move tutors who teach moves in exchange for those shards that we grinded out earlier. So we can actually get some pretty decent moves on him for the next gym. And the funny thing is that we didn't even really need him for Clay, though Parisa does make our lives a whole lot easier. No, we're letting another special someone take care of the 5th gym leader. Clay leads with Krokorok, and I send out none other than Salad. Krokorok lowers our attack with Intimidate, but Salad needs more than a toothless threat to be discouraged. Krokorok outspeeds with a Crunch, barely doing half, and Salad hits a super effective Giga Drain, picking up the one-shot, and recovering our HP back to full. What a mon. Next is Sandslash, and if that's all Krokorok can do, what's Sandslash's plan? Well, Crush Claw does lower our defense, but he too goes down to a single Giga Drain. And finally, it's the big scary Excadrill. While Clay's prior Pokemon could cause some damage, his Run Killer title is granted mostly thanks to this Pokemon. Excadrill uses Slash, Salad tanking, and then she lands the Leech Seed. It's over. Well, Salad's getting pretty low, so we bring out Parisa, but this is her victory. Parisa pretty much walls all of Clay's attacks, and because Bulldoze is a speed lowering move, despite it being Exca's best attack at the moment, he refuses to use it as Parisa is already slower. Sometimes the AI is a bit weird, us walling the rest of his attacks. Parisa even uses a Bug Bite, eating Exca's berry, but Clay does heal, making this process a bit slower. A few Iron Heads with damage from Leech Seed eventually brings Don Excadrill down, putting the 5th gym behind us. Clay, a boss battle thought as being a run killer, brought down single-handedly by a Sunflora, and with some help from Parisa of course. Had we not got Parisa, my original plan involved a lot of switching between Salad and Stake, recovering HP with Leech Seed in the meantime. Though if Leech Seed didn't land, I'm not sure what I would have done without Parisa. Before we can continue with our adventure, we're invited to take part in the Pokemon World Tournament, and this is possibly the single best addition to Black and White 2. Despite being a single building, the amount of content this one building holds puts other games to shame. From there being your typical Battle Tower game modes to you battling the gym leaders and even champions from other regions. The amount of time I must have spent in the post-game is something that I don't want on record. This is just one of the reasons why these are my favorite games in the franchise. We technically have another rival battle here, but for some reason everyone's Pokemon are forced down to level 25. except ours. Well, works for us, as Pignite is a frightening Pokemon for us at the moment. 3 of my 4 Pokemon being weak to fire, with the other one being weak to fighting. For some reason, it doesn't even use a fire move against Stake, so we get a free pass this time. But we really need to do something about the hole in our defenses. And this is where I need to make a confession. Remember earlier when I got the Sunstone in Relic Passage? Well, it turns out that you can't exactly find Sunstones there. Any evolutionary stones for that matter. Only shards. So our precious Sunflora? That's an illegal Pokemon. Or it would have been, but it turns out that you can actually get a free Sunstone in Nimbasa City, and I didn't use Salad until our battle against Alessa anyway. So we're safe from the Nuzlocke police. Why am I bringing all of this up now? With the 5th badge, we can now head into Chargestone Cave, and here we can indeed farm Dust Clouds for evolutionary stones. I double checked this time. So we can now evolve our Sashimi into his namesake Vaporeon. On the route here, Sharon even gives us the HM for Surf, a free 90 BP water move that we can immediately equip onto Sashimi for Water Stab. 2 problems solved at once. And here we can also get our next encounter, one that'll be our last one for a while. This one is also our first and only non-5% encounter. Being found at 2%, Calstoy the Tynamo took me almost 2 hours to find. Tynamo is an interesting Pokemon that I've never actually used before. It's pretty weak when it starts out, but it evolves into Electric on our level cap, who then evolves into Electros with the Thunderstone that we can find in the Dust Clouds. I love its design, at least in Generation 5. Why didn't it keep using its legs? Electros is a weird Pokemon who isn't particularly strong or defensive, but learns a surprisingly diverse amount of moves through TMs and move juices, and it's also a mixed attacker. And she's an electric type with Levitate, so she essentially has no weaknesses. Once we get access to more TMs, it can be a jack of all trades. And ours also has a special attack boosting nature. Also, I know I spelled Calsoy wrong, I was just too lazy to change it. And here's another confession. So it turns out, Tynamo is actually more common on the bottommost floor, being an 8% encounter. Well, the thing is, by the time I'm writing this, I've already done the challenge a couple of months ago, and I'm not doing it again. So let's just say I changed the rules to include any encounters below a 10% chance. This is literally the only Pokemon it applies to. Moving on, I ran into another one right after. A 1 in 2,500 chance. I don't know how shiny hunters do it, man. Just those 2 hours looking for a normal Pokemon was enough to put me off this game for a week. And with our brand new encounter, we're pretty much already set for the next gym. The move tutor I mentioned earlier has all the elemental punches, so we can spec out Cal's moveset pretty early on. State 2 learns Thunder Punch, which we can use to burn Skylar's potions, and then 2-shot Swoobat. Skylar already brings her ace Swarna out, so I switch into our new teammate as she halves our attack with Feather Dance. While being a mixed attacker, after tanking the Bubble Beam, Calsoy can just Volt Switch out, landing the one-shot, getting us a free switch back into Stake for Skylar's next Pokemon, Skarmory. Well, the truth is we would have rather stayed in, as with Skarmory's impressive defense, Thunder Punch doesn't do nearly as much, and Cal walls her attacks anyway. Another Volt Switch picks up the kill, getting us the 6th badge. Skylar's never really too difficult, but our encounters are pretty well suited for her. On the route towards Celestial Tower, Zangoose and Seviper can be found at 5%, but unfortunately, like Heracross, they're more common towards the end of the game, so no new Pokemon. Dragging Juniper back, we can catch a flight to Lantimus Town, and that got me wondering, what's stopping anyone else from using Fly? I mean, we haven't unlocked the town yet, but why did she need to catch a flight? Now that we've been here, we can come and go as we please. Here we can also find our second move tutor. The outskirts of Reversal Mountain is home to a 5% Skarmory, who is more common in the Doubles Grass, which houses the 5% Vibrava, whose pre-Evo Trapinch is more common in the regular grass. This feels like it was designed to screw me over. Making our way through the cave, we enter Undella Town, and once again I completely forgot that we have a rival battle here, but now we have an answer for fire types. We can take Unfezant down with a couple of Thunder Punches, and we're already faced against Emboar. We can't risk taking a fire move, so switch straight into Sashimi on the takedown. Why would he use that of all moves? Lucario would have just resisted it. It does just less than half, but now we're risking a crit on Sashimi's debut battle. I wanted to be safe, so thinking I would outspeed, we take another takedown, and then I use Charm, halving its attack. This was a mistake. I wasn't sure if Surf was a kill, and had we outsped, this wouldn't have been an issue. But now I'm not really sure where to go from here. Well, Sashimi most certainly can't stay in, so I make a bit of a risky play switching into Salad on the much weaker takedown. I mean, if it didn't use a fire move against Stake, then we should be fine. I actually really don't know why the AI isn't using its fire move. I checked and Ember has Heat Crash, which most certainly would do more damage to both Steak and Salad. If anyone knows, please let me know in the comments. But the reason I brought Salad in is because she learns a very special move from the last move chooser. A super effective ground type earth power. That's it? Salad, come on. Peasant heals, and another earth power does at least half. But can we survive another attack? Yup, still no fire move. Earth power picks up the kill. That could have gone far worse. Unfortunately, Salad's taken too much damage to handle Semi-Poor despite having the type advantage. But we've got more answers for her now. Kalsoy takes the Scald on the switch in, which burns. Doesn't matter, we can just barely take another one. God, 5 HP. And Volt Switch gets the one shot. The rival of all battles should not be the one almost ending my run. I really thought Vaporeon could outspeed an Ember, but despite its design, it actually has some speed. Not fast, but not terribly slow either. I can relate. Speaking of speed, I've heard that subscribing to my channel and liking my video feels just like taking some. Not that I've ever tried subscribing to my own channel. God, these are just getting worse each video. They must have gotten some complaints from Black and White, because unlike the last games where you had to battle one of your 3 rivals every other step, in this game, rival battles are few and far between, showing up at some pretty random times. You pair up with him for double battles far more times than you actually fight him. This next portion is a pretty long connection of routes housing all of the Pokemon that we couldn't get earlier at more common rates. But this is mostly story stuff that we don't really care about. While these are some of my favorite games in the franchise, one thing I don't really like is how the legendary trio just appear in front of you during the story. I kinda wish they stayed the way they were from the last game. Eventually, we reach Upper Lucid City, the final city of the last game, but this time Drayden's the 7th gym leader. Instead of being a long convoluted set of paths like the last game, this one's a very simple trainer gauntlet, with us having to choose who to fight, either trainer focusing on a different strategy. One having a Dredagon with the ability Rough Skin, holding a Rocky Helmet for extra damage, which I thought was pretty interesting for just a regular trainer to have. Drayden's usually considered to be a pretty hard boss battle, but we're pretty well equipped for him. Drayden leads with Dredagon and I send out Sashimi, and all I want to do is halve its attack with Charm. Now I can bring in Steak, who 4 times resists the crunches, and then set up a Sword Stance, doubling our attack. While Dredagon does have a fighting move, Revenge only does half the damage if we don't attack it on the same turn. For some reason, he opts to use an ineffective Slash, and now a super effective Ice Punch picks up the one-shot. Flygon goes down to a 4 times effective Ice Punch, and lastly it's the Ace Hexorus. But it's actually pretty non-optimal. Dragon Dance raises attack and speed, which is nothing to scoff at, but it only has the stab move Dragon Tail, which always moves last. On top of that, he has no moves to hit steel types. It looks like it was going to use Dragon Tail as we outspeed to hit a super effective Ice Punch, taking Hexorus down in 1 hit, earning us the 7th badge. I can see him being a lot more difficult in monotype challenges, but there are quite a few steel types that you can find throughout the game. Honestly, I could see his first 2 Pokemon giving you more trouble if you don't have answers, considering they have better coverage. And with our 7th badge, we're ready to take on the end of the game. Leaving Drayden's house, Team Plasma storms Upper Lucid with their airship, firing off icicles freezing over the entire city. Never would I have thought that we would see something like this in a Pokemon game, the enemy team actually attacking a city. But this means that we're forced to chase the airship down, going through the marine tube in Undella, bringing us to Humalao City, Alola before Alola existed. And here, we're already set to challenge the final gym. But before I do so, we may as well get our next encounter. It won't be too helpful with the next gym, but it's about time that we have a full team. Heading south to the Seaside Cave, we can descend to the lowermost floor, and begin our hour-long search for a 5% encounter. That doesn't sound like much, especially compared to the 3 hours I spent looking for the 1% Snubble the last time I did this challenge. But this one's 5 times more common, a 1 in 20 chance. I didn't count, but based on the average encounters I have a minute, I must have gone through like 60 to 80 encounters, well over the odds. Oh. I mean, shiny Pokemon are rare, I suppose. But we can find a Woobat anywhere. Sacrificing the Woobat must have blessed me with good luck, because not even 5 minutes later, we finally land our encounter, Mucky the Shuckle. I love this Pokemon, but honestly I think it's a little overrated. She's got amazing defenses, in exchange for having a pitiable attacking stat, but her HP is so low that it barely matters. Of course, there are other things that she can do, but That being said, further into the same cave, we can grab the perfect TM for Mucky. I really hope that you like Poison Stall tactics. And having a full team for the first time this challenge, we can take on the final gym leader, Marlon. Marlon leads with Caracosta and I send out Salad. Our Giga Drain is 4 times effective, but it has Sturdy surviving on 1 HP. Crunch barely does anything. Marlon heals up and we can recover all that damage back with another Giga Drain. And Outspeed to use yet another Giga Drain to bring Caracosta down. Next is Wailord, who managed to double his special defense with Amnesia before we can hit Giga Drain, doing far less damage. Next turn it bounces into the air, so we need to switch out into Cowl, who resists the bounce. And our mixed attacker can use a physical electric move this time, Thunder Punch, picking up the kill. And finally is the Ace Jellicent. He hits us with Scald, no burn, and we Volt Switch out, doing over half, triggering its berry, and giving us a free switch into Salad. Salad tanks the Omni Wind and hits back with a super effective Leaf Storm, picking up the kill and earning us the final badge. Salad has gone above and beyond my expectations this run. I am so sorry for trash talking her early on. Granted, I probably would have been a whole lot meaner if we didn't have Stake as an encounter immediately after. Together, they've been unstoppable. We have some more stuff with Team Plasma, but once again, they aren't really important battles yet. I do want to say that Peasant's one of the best at double battle partners, as he actually leads with his best Pokemon, instead of the typical weak lead your rival usually starts with in double battles. I think this version of Team Plasma really needed some interesting admins. Last time they had N as a sort of rival admin, but like, who even remembers Zinzolin? They kinda just feel irrelevant until literally the very end, which we're gonna skip straight to. Arriving at the final dungeon before Victory Road, we can get our final encounter of the game. The Giant Chasm is home to some very powerful and rare Pokemon. I mean, this is where the legendary Kyurem resided during the last game. Our encounters must be good. Just looking at the Shaking Grass encounters, you have Pokemon like Tangrowth, Crobat, Mamoswine, and even the pseudo-legendary Metagross as 5% encounters, while Tangela and Golbat are common encounters, and Piloswine and Metang can be found at 10%. But there is indeed a rare 5%er, so it must be good. Well, only about 50 minutes into our search, we find our last member of the team. A Delibird. Our final encounter is a fucking Delibird. This didn't take too long, but that was still 16 minutes more than what she's worth. This is all we have. If we lose even a single Pokemon, Tata is our only backup. God, none of you better die. With our party packed to the brim, we can take on Team Plasma one final time. I really like how short the Team Plasma segments are. It never really feels like my time's wasted, and this Team Plasma has a pretty decent variety of Pokemon. But after storming the airship, breaking our way through to the cockpit, bridge? Is this a ship or an aircraft? We're face to face with the new boss of Team Plasma, and it's none other than Colress. You know, that guy that we fought like once? Colress leads with Magneton, and I send out Salad. Now this Magneton's holding an Eviolite, increasing its defenses, but after tanking a Flash Cannon, Salad's 4 times effective Earth Power brings Magneton down to 1 HP thanks to Sturdy. Flash Cannon did right about half, so I'm not really sure if it's a roll. I knew he was going for a heal anyway, so I stay in one more turn, but now I need to switch into Kalsoy, who walls Magneton's stabs, though it does outspeed to use a Tri-Attack, putting us below half. Cal finishes him off with a Fire Punch. Next is the bigger Magneton, who exchanges the Eviolite defense for the ability to hit like a truck, and this Pokemon has a very scary move. I'm not sure that Kalsoy can survive an attack, so I need to switch, but we're not really too suited for electric types. Back to Salad as he chooses to paralyze us instead. I always forget that electric types can still be paralyzed in this generation. I'm honestly not confident that Salad can survive. But we're against a wall, and none of my other Pokemon want to take an attack from Magnezone, so we stay in. And it uses a resisted discharge, Salad surviving, and then not being able to move. We were so close. Alright, maybe if it uses discharge one more time, and it decides to use a sensible move this time. Salad going down. She did way better than I was expecting her to, and she even died for a worthy cause. Now we can safely bring in Stake to avenge her. Magnezone has a high defense, but Stake has finally learned his special attack fighting move, Aura Sphere, leaving Magnezone on just 1 HP, again thanks to Sturdy. Magnezone paralyzes Stake too. Now it outspeeds, and yep, there's the scary move. None of my Pokemon want to take an explosion, but Stake tanks it better than expected. The Ace Kling-Klang's already on the field, and this one too has a pretty scary move. Shift Gear raises both attack and speed, basically Dragon Dance. Stake's paralyzed. Okay, not good. Kling-Klang, come on. Stake, why? Oh god, this thing can now sweep my team. But Stake finally finds the will to move, using an Aura Sphere, getting the one-shot. That could have costed me like half of my Pokemon. RAREST actually decided to try out a new type, but now we can just switch into Parisa, who walls, and then one-shot with Deck Scissor. Lastly, it's Matang, who tanks them better, but can't really do anything in return. 2 more X Scissors later, that's RAREST down. That was actually terrifying towards the end. I'm not even sure if this run's possible without Stake, and we came so close to losing him, along with probably half of my team. I'm sorry, Salad, but at least your death wasn't in vain. I really wanted to see her in the Hall of Fame. Well, we don't have a moment's worth of rest before we confront the Overlord actually behind Team Plasma's return. The original leader, Getzes. Getzes 6 Kyurem onto us, and actually tries to kill us. How has no other evil team ever tried to do that before? Getzes is the best Pokemon villain. But N comes in at the very last minute to save the day, and then immediately loses his Zekrom, making Kyurem even stronger. Kyurem really isn't a difficult battle. Fusion Bolt does a lot, but we can use a super effective Iron Head, already putting it into the red. And because I don't want to risk the roll, I let Kalsoy finish the job. Kyurem really would have benefited from getting the stab boost that bosses in newer games get. But with the game's box legendary down, we're just left with the true boss of Team Plasma, Getzes. Getzes leads with Cofagrigus, and we lead with Parisa, thankfully fully healed. Steel still resists Ghost in this generation, and Ironhead can 2-shot. Getzes sends out his own Electros, and this one has fire moves, so into Maki, on the Thunderbolt. Alright, we tank. We are extremely slow, so Electros hits us with an Acrobatics, us surviving, and now can show you a very special move that Shuckle learns, Power Split, which takes both of our attacking stats and averages them out. Now, we don't really care about attacking, but this essentially cuts foes' attacks in half with how abysmal Maki's attacking stats are. Look at how little Thunderbolt does now. While we just rest up. Now I can just stall out the sleep, and when we wake up, hit a Toxic. And back to bed. Well, you can kinda guess how the next 5 minutes go. On Electros' last turn, however, I do switch into our own to tank the attack. And on Electros' death, we can base out the Seismitoad. I'm not really sure if the AI recognizes that we have Levitate during the stage they switch out Pokemon, but we know now it'll use a water move, so into Sashimi, who has the ability Water Absorb. Sashimi is once again outsped, Earthquake doing less than half. Return with the Surf, landing a crit, getting the one-shot. Having Sashimi healthy isn't too important, but now we know Drapion's using a Dark or Poison move, so into Stake, who resists both. Drapion has Earthquake, so we can't stay in, but Kalsoy can safely switch in. Drapion moves first, Night Slash not doing much, and because it has better defense than special defense, we Volt Switch out doing more than half, getting a free switch back into Sashimi. Tank the Night Slash, and Surf puts Drapion down. The saddest change in this game, in my opinion, is how dirty they did poor Getzes' ace Hydreigon. In Pokemon Black, this was the final boss Pokemon, a terrifying one at that, easily having the capabilities to perform a reverse sweep. This one, however, is A, a lower level, B, now sports a full physical moveset, despite being a special attacker, and C, is completely walled by steel types. Why would they do this? Look at his old Hydreigon. Man really let himself go over the past 2 years. I mean, I kinda get it. He's not the final boss this time, so they didn't want him being too difficult. But did they really need to go so hard in the opposite direction? We can safely bring Stake in and set up a Swords Dance, doubling our attack. Now a Stab, super effective, +2 close combat, picks up the kill on Getzes' ace Hydreigon. And finally, with our attack doubled and Toxicroak being pretty frail, a max +2 return can get the one-shot on Getzes' final Pokemon. What? Toxicroak survives on what looks like 1 HP and uses a super effective Brick Break. Stake from full HP, being brought down. Our best Pokemon. We lost our best Pokemon that carried us through the entire game to a Pokemon that was 6 levels under us. Oh. I mean, natures aren't really that important in Nuzlocke. This was one of those rare times our nature very much did indeed matter. That 10% made all the difference. Parisa can come in to wrap up the job, Getzes loses, Team Plasma disbands, the day is saved, yay. But what now? We lost both of our starters, each one to a boss of Team Plasma. In one turn, we've made the endgame from being a mild challenge to almost impossible. Fucking Delibird, man. With the villainous team down and 8 badges claimed, all that's left is the Pokémon League. This game follows a more traditional Pokémon story than the original ones. Now, most of the game must have seemed easy so far. Why didn't I just play in challenge mode? Well, as with most of my runs, the Elite Four are by far the hardest part of the game, and challenge mode turns them into such a massive difficulty spike. After looking at my encounters for the game, I figured it just wouldn't be possible with my rule set. Stake or no stake. But that doesn't mean that they're a pushover in their regular state either, especially now. The funny thing is that we didn't even really need Salad or Steak specifically. Don't get me wrong, they would have both put in work, but the more important part was just having a full team. One that we can equally distribute the damage among, having different tanks for different types. But now we're stuck with just 5, one of them having the worst defensive typing in the game, with awful stats too. We potentially could have gotten 2 more encounters on the way to the Pokémon League if my restrictions are a bit looser. On the route towards Victory Road, Vullaby has a 5% chance, but in these games, the evolved form appears as a static Pokémon on Route 4, the one to Nimbasa, only on Thursdays. Why did they need to include this? Mandibuzz is such a tanky Pokemon with a great typing and is such a better flying type than Delibird. The other one feels more like a victim of oversight. Like Carablast and Shelmet, the fighting duo Sork and Throw, 2 share a similar connection. One's more common in one game, rare in the other. Sork is a common encounter in Black 2, Throw is rare. But for whatever reason, I genuinely don't know on purpose or not, Throw is a 30% encounter in Victory Road for both games. We basically lost a whole encounter just because I picked the wrong version. Well, had I picked White 2, we wouldn't have Parisa, and Parisa has just become our commander. Don't taunt me. Actually, that thing I said about Hydreigon, scratch that. The saddest change in these games is what they did to the badge entry gate towards Victory Road. In Pokemon Black and White, it was such a cool badge check, us going through different sections styled like the badges they represented. In the sequels, it's basically just an airport security gate. Victory Road 2 has changed significantly since the last game, and I quite like the new layout. Just like the last games though, once you know the path, you can make it to the end in like 5 minutes, fighting few to no trainers. But there is in fact one battle we're forced into. Peasant appears in our way one final time. The Black and White 2 rival has no business actually being a danger to us. Peasant sends out Unpheasant, and we lead with Cowsoy. Unpheasant notices at a disadvantage, you turning out into Bufflant, as we conveniently used a Volt Switch, doing some damage and getting us a free switch into Parisa. We get hit by a resisted head charge, still doing a bit, and Ironhead just misses the kill. I know a heal's coming, so I set up a Swords Dance, and after taking another head charge, Ironhead gets the one shot. We're already onto the big bad Embor. But now we have a few more options available to us. Into Mucky on the Brick Break. Seriously, just use your fire moves. We still tank pretty well. Now he uses a flamethrower for some reason, despite having a weaker special attack, and we can weaken it with the power split. Where's you low to safely use RAREST, so straight into Sashimi. On Scald, make up your mind, goddamn. But that's good for us, as we're immune. This time, not being careful, Embor outspeeds hit Brick Break, and we just use a Surf turn 1. Not getting the kill. The next one, I guess. That kinda sucked as now Sashimi's already below half as Simipour comes out. We're immune to water and the rest of his attacks are physical, so now we can start using charms to cut its attack. Crunch did a lot, but we can do a special little maneuver. Into Parisa on the resisted Crunch. Okay, Rock Slide. And now since the water moves its strongest attack, we can bring back Sashimi to get a free heal with Water Absorb. What? I really don't understand the AI, man. Maybe he's too traumatized to use water moves now. Sashimi very well may have escaped death, but since this isn't working, I stay on the Crunch to begin attacking. Hyper Voice doing about half. But if Peasant really does have trust issues with water moves, with its attack lowered, we can safely bring in Cowsoy to end the battle. Unless he lands a crit. It was all going so well. If you didn't know, crits ignore both defense boosts and attack drops, while also doing twice the damage in this generation. We were so close. We don't see another crit, so we're able to take Simipour down. But now, a Pokemon we should have been able to one-shot can outspeed and kill my entire remaining team. How did we get here? Don't look at Steak, he's just here to be carried to the morgue. Cow did use a Volt Switch, so at the very least we're able to safely bring in our only healthy Pokemon. Go on, Tartar. Our entire run rests on your shoulders. Delibird is such a bad Pokemon. Ours even has the ability Hustle, which gives physical attacks a 50% boost, but at the cost of being far less accurate. Surely you can survive one hit. Unpheasant used the one move we really didn't want to see. Swagger doubles our attack and confuses us, now turning this into a 50% chance. But she pushes through, landing the hit and getting the one shot. And she even lands an overkill crit of her own, cause why not? That crit earlier happened at the worst of times. This battle would have been easy otherwise. Tata, I am so sorry for ever doubting you. She single-handedly saved the run. That was the closest I've come to wiping in this run. Not just losing important teammates, but actually wiping. Unpheasant could have easily outsped and killed my remaining Pokemon. Maybe he heard what I said about Baby Pidove at the start of the video. But unfortunately, there really is not much more prep that we can do before the real big battles. After sprucing up our movesets and farming a few berries, we're now ready to wrap this challenge up and take on the Pokémon League. While we're definitely going to struggle during the league, we at the very least have 2 battles in the bag. The first of them being Grimsley. I mentioned earlier that Parisa will be our new commander, and that's because he's going to be central to taking down the Elite Four. Grimsley leads with Liepard, and we send out Sashimi. All Sashimi needs to do is lower Liepard's attack to nothing. The fake out crits, and then Liepard infatuates Sashimi, making all of our attacks into a 50-50. But he lands the first charm. This makes lowering Liepard's attack annoying, but she's pretty weak, so good enough. Into Parisa, and look at how little Night Slash does. Liepard infatuates Parisa too, but he sets up a sword stance. Tank another attack, and Parisa once again wins the coin flip to use a super effective +2 X-Scissor, getting the one shot. Crocodile does lower our attack by 1 stage with Intimidate, and then uses an Earthquake, doing a lot. But another X-Scissor lands another one shot. Like an idiot, I forgot to equip my Citrus Berry, and now we're quite low as Crafty comes in. Instead of taking another attack, I let Parisa rest up, restoring us back to full. And now into Maki to lower its attack, then into Sashimi to lower it even further. Back to Parisa. Now we just have to stall out the sleep while it does pitiful damage. We even have the ability Shell Armor, preventing any crits. After waking up, use a Swords Dance, and an Iron Head gets another one shot. And finally is Bishop, who can't do anything to us. And one shot. And that's Elite Four member 1 down. The next easy win is Caitlyn. We once again have the type advantage, but she's a bit tougher as her Pokemon mostly use special moves, which we don't have many means of lowering. This time we just lead with Parisa as Caitlyn sends out Mashana. Even this thing can outspeed us. It uses a Yawn and an X-Scissor gets the one shot. For some reason she gives me another free kill despite having a Pokemon neutral to bug. And this is where I realized that I did equip a berry, but the wrong one. Now this is an issue since Gothitelle comes out on the turn that we fall asleep and stay asleep. She uses a Thunderbolt on the free turn, but then begins setting up Calm Minds, which is frightening, raising both her special attack and special defense. Asleep one more turn and another Calm Mind. Alright Parisa, come on now. Wake up! I got another Calm Mind. And Parisa wakes up. X-Scissor getting another one shot. Alright, I took these easy wins a bit too lightly. Wouldn't have been an issue if I just equipped the right berry. And finally it's Sigilyph, the one Pokemon not weak to bug. Why did it take this long? S-Slash does a bit, but we can eat our stupid berry recovering our HP. X-Scissor gets the 2 shots. And that's the second Elite Four member. Shell Armor really does make staying in feel so much safer. Well, with the 2 free Elite Four members down, we now have to deal with the problem children. If Stake was still alive, Marshall would have actually been the tougher battle, but now I'm a lot more afraid of Chantel. However, the fact that we don't have him makes Marshall even more difficult than he would have been, but he is still easier than Chantel, so he's first. Our team isn't too suited to handle fighting types, and we don't really have any Pokemon to counter. Tata has the flying type, but we can't really rely on her thanks to her ability. Throw is entirely a physical attacker, so we lead with Sashimi to cripple its attack with Charm. We even outspeed. Throw has the move Storm Throw, which always crits. However, the AI doesn't really consider this into their decision making. He opts for speed control with Bulldoze, and now outspeeds to use Payback, despite being faster. Payback doubles in power if you attack first, so I don't really know what he was thinking. But we do this 2 more times, Storm Throw finally comes out, ignoring the attack drops. But we keep ourselves healthy with our berry, and now his attack is at its absolute lowest. Now we can bring in our tank, Parisa. So Storm Throw does always crit, but our ability Shell Armor negates even those. So it does a pathetic 7 points of damage, which we can recover back with our leftovers. And considering that's his best attack, we can max out our attack with Sword Stance. all while remaining completely healthy, and Ironhead gets the one-shot. And as Mienshao comes in, we're still at full HP. We take a high jump kick, doing far more damage than I was expecting, and Ironhead. Out comes the Ace Conkeldurr, and if high jump kick did that much, we're not surviving an attack from him. But the thing is, I don't think any of my other Pokemon are taking that attack either. So Tata has one last important job left to do. Godspeed, Tata. This is probably the most useful you'll ever be. She gives us a free switch into Sashimi. Hammer Arm also lowers Konk's speed, so we know that we can outspeed to use a charm, cutting its attack. As he uses a bulk up, raising both attack and defense by one stage. This might seem scary, but this was the exact move we wanted to see. Charm lowers attack by 2 stages and bulk up raises it by 1. So we'll always see a net profit using Charm. And with Konk's attack being in the negative, it'll be baited into continuously using bulk up. And eventually, while he's at -6 attack, he just gives up and uses Hammer Arm anyway, meaning his attack is at his absolute lowest. Now Parisa would be the safe option, but remember, during this time Konk's defense has been maxed out. We weren't lowering that. So while we do have to risk the crit, I bring in Kalsoi, now sporting a full special moveset. Even with his low special defense, Thunderbolt looks to be a 3-hit KO after eating his berry, but he goes back to using bulk ups for some reason. So 2 more Thunderbolts and that's the Ace Conkeldurr down. I hope I didn't make this seem too easy, a single crit could have ruined us. Finally it's Sulk, but with us being healthy and still with our berry, we can stay in to use 2 more Thunderbolts, Marshall being brought down. I was dreading this battle the moment we lost Stake. If you're wondering why he would have made this a little easier despite being weak to fighting, he has a very high special attacking stat and can learn the TM for Psychic. This would have probably been the battle that I would have sacked him on, but it was Tartar's sacrifice that allowed us the victory. And that leaves us with Chantel, who I said was even more difficult than Marshall. Well, truth is, she's going to be a much shorter battle. The hard part comes from her being almost entirely luck-based. I hate to say this, but once again, I spent some time actually doing some damage calcs before fighting her. Trust me, that doesn't guarantee anything. Chantal uses Cofagrigus and I send out Kalsoi. She might burn us with a Will-O-Wisp, which we don't really care about, or use Shadow Ball, which we would rather not see. This is possibly the first Pokemon she's being able to outspeed without any speed drops. Cofagrigus has a relatively low special defense, so she can fall to 2 Thunderbolts. She opts for the move that we really didn't want to see, but no crit. But then we got our defense lowered. That is something you really didn't want to happen. Now that makes the scariest Pokemon all that much more terrifying. Another Thunderbolt picks up the kill, and next is Golurk. We've taken some damage, but that's fine. Wait, how does this thing outspeed? I mean, it doesn't really matter, but still, we restore some HP with our berry. Kalsoi now has the move Giga Drain, super effective against ground moves, and recovers us almost back to full. We take another Shadow Punch, but recover back less HP this time. Golurk going down. And there's our sleep paralysis demon. Chandelure has an insane special attacking stat, higher than even Alakazam, and gets great coverage, having super effective moves for 2 of our mons. To top it off, she even outspeeds all of my remaining Pokemon. Like I mentioned earlier, with it being a special attacker, we don't really have many means of lowering its damage output. If Cow had not got its defense lowered, we might have been able to take an attack and then paralyze with Thunder Wave, but since Chantel landed the 20% chance, we now need to switch up our strat. I know a Fire Blast is coming, so I switch her under Sashimi, as it misses. This might allow us to survive another move, but I'm not sure, as Chandelure is able to outspeed using a super effective energy ball, doing just about half, triggering our berry. Okay, we can take 1 more attack as long as there's no crit. We use a Surf, and it manages to land the one-shot, Chandelure being swept away. I was hiding this, but that was around a 60% chance. Had Chandelure been paralyzed, we could have outsped a 2-shot, but needing to survive 2 energy balls would have been a big ask, especially considering it too has the chance to lower special defense. And finally it's Drifblim. We can handle Drifblim. Parisa's Ironhead does well over half, and the next one even crits. Parisa had plenty of HP to tank the aftermath damage, Drifblim going down, and us beating the final Elite Four member. The scariest thing about Nuzlocke is needing to rely on luck I barely have. See what I mean when I said just having a full team is helpful? If he had just 1 extra encounter, we would have had a free sacrifice for Chandelure. Stake also learns Shadow Ball and outspeeds Chandelure, so he really would have been helpful here. We're struggling to fight bosses with 4 Pokemon. If we played challenge mode, they would have 5. All with better movesets, and items too. But there still is one final battle. One that uses a full team of Pokemon. and Iris, in my opinion, has one of the best champion teams in the series. Iris leads with Hydreigon, and we lead with Maki one final time. If you're wondering why Guess's Hydreigon was so much weaker, it's probably because it ran away to Iris, hers having the exact same moveset, making it such a threatening lead. Maki tanks the super effective Surf surprisingly well, and uses Power Split, pretty much halving Hydreigon's attack. And now she takes another, using Struggle Bug, which crits, but more importantly, lowers Hydra's attack even further. Alright, Maki. What a send-off. I was wondering if I could Toxic Stall it, but Surf does a bit too much. No matter, Maki did great. And now we know a Surf's coming, so that's a free switch into Sashimi. Thanks to Maki's efforts, Sashimi eats the Dragon Pulse and hits back with a super effective Ice Beam, getting us the first kill. Lapras is out as she knows Thunderbolt, so we let Kalsoy tank. Lapras has Ice Beam and Surf, which do the same amount of damage, but we don't want to see Ice Beam as that means there's a 10% chance to freeze. Cal doesn't get frozen and uses a super effective Giga Drain, not doing much but recovering back plenty of HP thanks to Lapras's high base HP stat. This means we can take another Ice Beam, restore some HP with our Berry, and finish the job with Thunderbolt. Aggron's out, and while it is pretty defensive, its special defense is less impressive. How does this outspeed 2? A neutral Giga Drain does the same amounts as done to Lapras, but we can take a non-crit, so it was a speed tie. I'm not sure if Thunderbolt can get the kill from here, so another Giga Drain puts Aggron in heal range. Look, I was trying to play it safe, but this is the final battle. I stay in as Iris heals, and use a Thunderbolt doing over half, and now I flip the coin, which we lose. A double edge brings an end to Kalsoy's service. She was an amazing Pokemon with so much utility, and now her death lets us safely bring in Sashimi, who we now know outspeeds. A Surf puts Aggron down. Druddigon alone isn't that bad, but this one is the only other Pokemon that holds an item, a Life Orb, which when paired with its ability Sheer Force, gives it a 69% boost to all of its attacks with a secondary effect. Rock Slide doing a lot, but not getting the kill. Our Berry restores some HP back, and we outspeed to hit another super effective Ice Beam, bringing out Iris's terrifying ace, Haxorus. But with us being somewhat healthy, we should be able to take a hit, as Haxorus uses a Dragon Dance, raising both attack and speed. Now you would think we wouldn't want to see that, but remember Conkeldurr? I had the foresight to use Charm, lowering his attack by 2 stages, and now she's baited in. And even when she finally does decide to attack, her Earthquake does a pitiful amount, us using a final Charm bringing her attack down to the absolute minimum. And now Ice Beam into another Ice Beam gets us the kill against Iris's ace. And finally it's Archeops, but we shouldn't be too careless. It has a massive attacking stat and is pretty fast too, so even if we do have the type advantage, I think there's a better strat. Good job Sashimi, but Maki, I have one last task for you. Thank you, Maki. And now we can get a free switch into Parisa, and with no fear of a crit, we can stay in. As Archeops misses his final attack in sheer terror, Parisa uses a stab, super effective Iron Head, coming off his massive attacking stat, putting an end to Archeops, and the Nuzlocke. That was some of the most fun I've had towards the end of a challenge run in a while. I'm sad to not see Steak and Salad, both of our starters in the Hall of Fame, but their deaths really did make the Elite Four so much more fun and interesting to solve. They died for content. All worth it. I think these kinds of challenges are really fun to try out, considering how unique your team combinations can look towards the end, and think it'll be fun trying them out in other games, though I think for newer titles, I'll need to come up with a new rule set, as even 5% encounters become non-existent. So please let me know in the comments what games you'd like to see, and if you enjoyed the video please consider liking and subscribing, and I hope you look forward to more videos in the future.